I did a stupid and titled it 999, not 998. That's why there was another alert. Sorry, he chose Herbert's 100 harem. Same dull, stupid routine. Even with all the spires going crazy due to the council deciding they really needed everyone good and angry at them, she was still at work, still forwarding messages like a rube, still doing the things that a basic logic tree could replace, still the same boring, dull, busy work. And she would remain with the stupid, dull, busy work for decades to come because she was still on parole. 50 more years of this nonsense, and she was lucky to have avoided prison time for her involvement. No, she would stick to groups where they had clearly defined goals and methods. No more of that. I'll make you richer than rich and more powerful than powerful nonsense. She yawns mightily and rubs at the base of her horns. She's exhausted and needs to stop. Yes, there's 10 minutes on the clock, but if her horns feel like someone's balancing on them, then she's not going to get anything done. She tilts her head back and then opens her tired eyes as a strange shadow crosses over them. Then she shrieks when she realizes that the reason her horns feel like someone's standing on them is because someone is. The flail is fair from dignified, and she falls off the chair and onto the floor. The entire time the little man stays perfectly balanced, and it leaves her pinned down as he suddenly weighs so much, she can feel the pressure starting to crush the horns and press the back of her head into the cheap office carpet. "Gina Bleat?" the METAC asks in a cheerful tone. "Who are you? What do you want?" she demands. "To ask you a few questions. Something's come up. It's dangerous. It's a problem, and it leads to you. Lucky you, eh?" "I haven't done anything since the court hearing. I'm barely halfway through my parole and my assets are gone. I can't afford to get up to things." "I know. The trail that leads back to you predates the court hearing," the METAC stream says, and her mouth hangs open. "Come on, time for you to have a talk with the nice but on-edge ladies who are trying to stop themselves from panicking." "Why would they panic? I'm the one about to be interrogated." "We found something scary, and you're part of it. Fun, right?" the METAC asks, before suddenly pausing and holding a finger to his ear. "Stream here." She holds her breath as his expression shifts roughly 10 times in 5 seconds. "Fine, fine. How soon will he—" "I'm here," a downright angelic voice says, and the METAC steps off her horns and lets her roll over to see the most adorable little boy she's ever seen, right at that age where he's still got the huggy innocence of a small child and just becoming aware enough of what the soft parts up front are for to be embarrassed when he hugs. His eyes have the shinning innocence that you only see on the covers of those big sister romances where an arranged marriage has a woman find herself as the first wife of a barely of age little boy she has to raise into a husband. Miss Bleat, I need you in the here and now, please," the boy says, his tone polite but oddly firm. "Oh, what's going on?" "I'm Operative Jameson of Undaunted Intelligence. I'm sorry for what my agent did to pin you, but we weren't totally sure about you until he had engaged," Jameson says, and she pauses. "This boy is a higher-up? Not an actual child, then. What's going on?" "We're following the money trail of a very dangerous conspiracy. It leads back to you. Before your assets were passed over to an unknown party and then automated at any rate," he says. "That?" She pauses, considers, thinks, and tries to remember. "That was 50 years ago. Anything you can remember will be helpful. We have a lot of people on edge." "Am I going to get in further trouble?" "Not to my knowledge, but if things go very well, we should be able to return your old assets and stocks to you. They're still strong, and they've been paying for an entire automated conspiracy," he says before looking around and waving to her inquisitive co-workers, even as numerous very large women bristling with high-ranking uniforms, powerful weapons, and fierce looks enter the level. "Anyways, it won't be enough for a top-level mansion or a 10-bedroom estate on a plate, but you'll be able to live a much more comfortable life with them back. And the more we know, the quicker we can close this nonsense and release your possessions from evidence and back to your control." "Am I being bribed with my own stolen money?" she asks incredulously. "No, you're getting it back no matter what. But the more we know, the faster we can do that. So I'm bribing you with expedience. You want it back fast? Work with me, he says, and she blinks. You're admitting to bribing me? Bribing has a bad reputation. I'm paying you for a service without a formal contract. Mothers do that to get their children to do their chores, and that's fine. Waitresses work faster if you promise a better tip. Are those wrong? Not at all. Exactly. Now please come with me. Herbert begins before turning around as the manager arrives. Miss Bleat, I don't know what disgusting fetishes you have, but I will not tolerate them being indulged in my... Are you stupid? Herbert asks her. What did you say to me, you streetwalking? That's a yes. Take her away, ladies, Herbert says as the approaching officer grabs the manager around the shoulders and then forcibly marches the protesting woman back into her own office. Gina smiles at the sight and turns back to Herbert, with it firmly affixed. Well, seeing that absolute pain in my behind get put in her place like that is worth almost anything. Although I must ask, how serious is this? The Tritite lady is contemplating the initiation of a holy crusade, Hebert says, and everyone goes quiet as the entire office stops, even pretending to not listen in, and poke their heads up to stare. Oh, yes. And I'm involved. The funds and assets you were scammed out of before being slammed for insider trading to try and recoup them? They're still being used now to continue a conspiracy that has everyone in the know treading lightly when they're not flailing around to try and get some kind of answer. That's bad. It was tied into the massive scan of Centrus that had every organization it swept over going insane. I'm honestly surprised you're here and not defending some kind of secret society headquarters. I learned my damn lesson is what happened. Unless I can be told straight up what something is about and confirm it with my own two eyes, I do not commit to anything anymore. As they say, once burned, twice shy. Weird saying, but accurate. She says, So, what do you want out of me? Just a friendly recorded interview. Do you have any favorite snacks or drinks? I find having treats makes them go by smoother, Herbert says, and she smiles. Okay, it is 1094 current epoch, 11th month, 18th day at 1700 hours and 13 minutes Centrus Unified Time. Can you confirm the time for me, ma'am? Herbert asks as he sits across from her at the high table. The fact that he was given a high bar stool rather than a comfortable plush seat like she had was something that gave everything a nice absurdist touch. I can confirm it is 5:13, now 5:14 in the evening. Gina says, Fantastic, I am Operative Herbert Jameson of the Undaunted Intelligence Division. My species is pure human. I am a recognized huntsman in the Dzaden and Yauya traditions and Grand Patriarch to the Jalak birds. Please state your name, species, occupation, and titles for the record. I am Gina Bleat, a muffus with Panzeros ancestry that manifests in enhanced vision in dark areas. I am the 139th heiress of the Zorian conglomeration Fortune. Currently a low-level administrator for Refraction Finance's Centrus, Branch 587. Very good. This interview is in relation to the events occurring on or before year 1044 current epoch in relation to the Darnaxian concurrence, as they are currently known. More specifically, we are undertaking this interview to have a better understanding of the employer that seized control of your assets and placed you in a position where you would later commit insider trading to recoup your losses to them. Is this understood? It is. Very good. Do you also understand that you possess the right to remain silent? But if the needs of this case grow into a legal battle, that anything you say or do not say can affect your legal defense? Herbert asks. I know how the right to silence works. Yes or no, please, he says. Yes, she replies. Very good. Now we can properly begin with that out of the way. Really quick, though, is the terrace fruit juice the right type? It all just tastes like apple to me, but I'm told there's a lot of variants by some people. They're called snobs. Terrace fruit juice of any kind is wonderful, to say nothing of these pastries, she says, holding up a berry-filled muffin. She then proceeds to borderline inhale. Excellent. We're friends here, so it's only fair you get fed and watered during all this. Not to mention hot apple cider and muffins is a perfect choice, Herbert says with a charming smile. Now then, 50 years ago you ran around with the Darnaxian concurrence before losing contact with them. You believed in them so much that you signed over control of your assets to an anonymous party that was in control of the Darnaxian concurrence. Is this accurate? Mostly I did believe in them, but I believed more in the sales pitch they offered me. They promised to make me a much richer woman. They just needed some steady startup assets, and in return I'd be getting Axiom Ride, hand over fist. It seemed too good to be true at first, and well, it was. But they wore me down and talked me around to it. Then I quickly lost contact with them and couldn't find them again. After which you got desperate, tried to make quick money in a less than legal way, and just barely avoided jail time in exchange for a long parole, incorrect? Correct. She agrees and he nods. Perfect. Now, well, what can you tell me about the Darnaxian concurrence around that time? What were they like? Do you have faces, or better yet, names? I'm afraid that I have nothing for either of those. I can tell you general species in that it was a Tret woman in charge, and she had an Alfar with a very flowery axiom tattoo in dark purple around her left side for her direct underling. But the rules of the concurrence then, I'm not sure about now, was that anyone that wasn't a basic employee like a janitor or security needed to have a mask at all times. Do you still have yours? I threw it away in frustration. Then I nearly got hit with a fine for littering. I'm sorry to hear that. Your run-in with these women seems to have been nothing but bad news from start to finish. Herbert says, his voice full of sympathy. Still, though, what did it look like? Was it a spooky mask to scare people? Some kind of party mask? Or was it more minimalist? Or even better, was it a parody of someone? Were you going around looking like the Speaker of the Council? No, it wasn't a parody mask, Gina says around a laugh. I might have kept it as it was. It was a festival mask. Do you know about the Reformist Gravid Church? A bit. I'm a human, and while I fulfill the requirements of the Gravid belief, I'm still on my toes around them. Mostly because most of my co-workers end up not fulfilling what they see as a moral life. Oh, well, the Reformist Gravid Church has the Starlight Fertility Festival 4 times a year. There are embellished masks for the role of mother, midwife, and daughter for women, and the son, husband, and father for men. I won't go into details, but the Tret had the mother mask on, the Alpha the midwife, and my own was a daughter mask. I don't know about theirs, but I bought mine from a festival, right off a little pushcart. So they kept their features hidden, and you could only make out races and that the Alfar's tattoo was purple, a very commonly used color for the Alfar. That's right, I'm sorry. Oh, don't worry. I'm sure you know something useful. If the easy stuff is covered, that just means the harder stuff will be an even harder hit. Harder stuff like what? Okay, so you don't know who they are, but do you know who they did not like? Who were their rivals and enemies? They had several, competitors and rivals in the business space. They knew I didn't care, so they weren't shy about talking about it around me. But I did hear that several nearby groups were being pests. Fantastic! Do these groups have names? Herbert asked eagerly. Also, do you remember the times when you met with them, when they were definitely with you?